Each month, Restaurant Hospitality will put the spotlight on rising stars, up-and-coming independent restaurant leaders that represent a next generation. We'll speak with these operators and chefs about the future of independent restaurants, menu and culinary innovations, operational adaptations, lessons learned, and more. And is sponsored by Smithfield Culinary. In this edition of Rising Star, we speak with Houston chef and restaurant operator Chris Williams, co-owner of the restaurant Lucille's, who has just launched the new Lucille's Hospitality Group with plans to add 4 new concepts over the next 2 years. We think Chris's star is rising. Here's Chris to tell you what he has planned.
Chris Williams, the chef and restaurant operator in Houston, who's known for the restaurant Lucille's, which he founded in 2012 with his brother, Ben Williams. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
So last year, when then presidential contender Joe Biden came to Houston to pay respects to the family of George Floyd, who's originally from Houston, they shared a meal at Lucille's. It's in the Museum District, and it's known for refined Southern food, shrimp and grits, braised oxtails, the famous chili biscuits. The restaurant is a tribute to his great-grandmother, who was a pioneering African-American entrepreneur, educator, chef. She created the first college-level commercial food and technology program at Prairie View A&M. She developed a biscuit mix that sold in grocery stores. Her chili biscuits were served on American Airlines flights. She cooked for Dr. Martin Luther King and Eleanor Roosevelt. Her history offers a culinary backstory and a legacy to the concept. And now Chris is ready for a next step. He's launched Lucille's Hospitality Group, which plans to open 4 new concepts by 2022. I'm going to let Chris tell you about that. The group has brought in James Beard Award semifinalist Dawn Burrell, who's known for her work at the restaurant Culture, and soon will be on Top Chef, I understand. And she's planning a new Afro-Asian concept scheduled to open in Houston in late August. It's called Late August. Chris is going to tell you about that. So Chris, why don't you just start us off by telling us about the new concepts and what you have planned for this year and next year?
Absolutely. So the first concept that we have opening up this summer in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, is a Mills Black Point Bistro. So this will be a seasonal restaurant. Will only be open maybe 5 months out of the year, from May through October at the most. And this is going to be a celebration of Nova Scotian ingredients with Lebanese influences. And this is essentially kind of like a love letter to the original owners of the concept of the restaurant, which has been there for 40 years. Immigrant Lebanese family, the Tomes, who every time I go to Canada, I developed a really tight relationship with the family, love their story. And we thought it'd be a great way to get louder with it and celebrate it. And then tap it, and there's a huge Lebanese community in Nova Scotia that's been there for a while. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity to tell their story and do a different take on these wonderful ingredients that come out of Canada. I mean, because we know their oysters are insanely delicious, but they also have some beautiful produce. The beef, well, they have some beautiful produce. And so we see that we have some opportunities to have a lot of fun up there. And
how did that come about?
Well, honestly, my ex-wife is from Canada. I met her when I lived there, like 12 years ago. And she came down here. Our 2 sons were born. One was born in Halifax. The other one was born here in Houston. And she, quite frankly, couldn't deal with the culture shock of Houston, Texas, and also competing with the new restaurant. She's not from the restaurant world. She wanted to move back to Canada. And Canada is a lovely place. People are very nice. But frankly, there's very few opportunities for people of color, and even less ownership out here. And so given that my sons live there, I need to ensure that they have direct access to what we do in that entrepreneurial spirit that runs within our family. So I was trying to figure out a way to open up a restaurant, and it just so happened that I started up the relationship with the Tone family, and this cultivated the idea of a Mills. So I've been working on it for about 3 years, and now we were supposed to launch last year, but of course the world changed. So now we're going to do it this year.
Right. So that's first, right? That's up next.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's June of this year.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the second concept, which we're really excited about, and I've been working on this one for about 9 months, excuse me, is late August. late August is going to be, and they just announced this yesterday. This is going to be in the old Sears building. And this is a historic building that's, you know, I think they did 7-8 years of business in there. They just shut down on the, 2 years ago, they just shut down. And so Rice University has taken over the development of it, brought in one of the top 5 architects in the world to redo it, but they're keeping a lot of the original bones because this is the state-of-the-art building when it was first built. So when the opportunity was presented to me, of course I hopped on it, and I wanted to come up with a concept that would be unique and speak to the history of the building. Because I mean, you kind of see that I'm a history buff. I love telling stories, and I love true stories that are built into the fabric of what we're already doing. Lucille's easy. That's my great grandmother. I'm in a 1920 house built in 1923. It makes sense, especially with no investors, no budget. That means that my build out costs were significantly lower. From that's how I'm gonna match the story. You know, I want
right.
to it's an easy fit. Same thing with the mills in Black Point. In Canada, it's a lot easier to sell a story than it is new takes on food. You know what I mean? Stories are what people buy into, and restaurants are experience-based businesses. And so then with late August, the Sears building, I started to research the history of the company, Sears Roebuck, and realized that they were essentially like Amazon before Amazon. They had the exact same reach, they had the catalogs, they had all that stuff. And the brilliant thing about it is that they were able to open up the shop and experience to all Americans, period. You know, even back with their companies started around 1918, I believe, 1916. They, because they were so smart, they were such smart businessmen, they were able to come up with a model to where everybody could benefit from the products that they were offering. Black people, white people, Asian people, all people. Because if you're Americans, you could afford it, you had an address they could deliver it to, they'd send it to you. So I thought that was a compelling component of the history of their story. Excuse me. And then I started thinking about my personal experience with Sears. And it was that Christmas catalog. And anybody who's over 38 years old,
right,
they know about that Christmas catalog. And I feel sorry for the parents of children who had to deal with that Christmas catalog. If they're anything like me, you circle the entire thing.
Right.
And then you're a parent, you have to, you know, then spend the next 5 months setting your child up for a significant disappointment because you're only going to get like 1 or 2 things out of that magazine. But so thinking about all those good feelings that I had as a kid going to that, I was trying to find out, pinpoint when that magazine came out. Just doing my research. And it didn't have a date, it just said late August. It comes out in late August. And as soon as I saw that, the letters just popped off the page. I mean, I was like, oh my God, that's what we're gonna name this restaurant. Because we're gonna try to come up with a fun concept that pays, you know, that pays homage to the history of the building, the people, the minds behind it, and also hopefully tap into those good feelings of you know, hope and excitement and giddiness for the experience you're gonna have. And also keeps it light and fun because we're not trying to, you know, take ourselves too serious. I think fine dining is all but dead. People want to have a more relaxed kind of experience, and that's what we hope to provide over there.
I love that. This is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And Chef Dawn Burrell is a beast, and I mean, you mentioned that she worked over at Culture, but before that, she was one of the top chefs over at Uchi. So that explains that Afro-Asian, and Uchi is your readers don't know, is one of the top sushi restaurants in the country, and they have, I think, 4 locations in Texas alone. I don't know if they've gone out, but she's one of the founding people. Not one of the founding people, but she's been there since close to the beginning. So her skills are all over the place, and she's one of those you know, chefs who are like true students of the craft, who wants to do everything the long, hard, nasty way, to making bread, all that kind of stuff.
Well, how big a restaurant are we talking about here? Because those Sears locations were huge. I mean, some of them are quite big. So
yeah, this building is meant to be it's called the Ion Center, which is the innovation hub. And so some of their tenants are going to be, you know, they already have Google, they have Microsoft, they have Chevron's tech arm, and I can't remember who else they're pulling up in there. So there's only 4 spaces allocated for restaurants, and we're the only full service restaurant that'll be in there. So it's around a 3,000 square foot footprint, I think, inside, with the design that we have in mind right now. It'll probably be like around 60 seats inside tops, with a lot of soft seating, a lot of nooks and crannies for people to relax and be spaced because, you know, I'm gonna have this COVID social distancing in my mind probably for the next 4 years.
Right.
And then we have a small, decent patio outside that's overlooking a beautiful courtyard.
Nice. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, so that's late August.
Right.
Then we have
Yes.
Rado Cafe.
Right. Then we have, and this is a beautiful opportunity that was born out of a collaboration between two nonprofits. Mine, which is only 6 months old, I guess, officially as far as the government's concerned. Lucille's 1913 with Project Row Houses, which is a 27-year-old nonprofit, and the largest Black arts nonprofit in the state, and one of the largest ones in the country. So they are renovating the El Dorado Ballroom, which is an amazing ballroom right in the heart of 3rd Ward, which is the neighborhood that I live in, that Lucille's is based in, the Ion Center is in. And it's like off of Black Wall Street, what used to be Black Wall Street, which has now gone full circle and is turning back into a major thoroughfare. It was built in 1937, and so they wanted to bring the building back to life. And we started having conversations about what that would look like. So looking at the space, walking up the space, I started thinking about the history of it and came up with 4 concepts to go in there. The first one is Rado Cafe. So the El Dorado Ballroom used to host people like Duke Ellington, Dizzy Gillespie, all the greats from that they were like the Savoy Club, like the Cotton Club, except for Houston. And what the people of the neighborhood used to refer to it as was the Rado. Like, hey, Dizzy's playing over at the Rado. We got to go catch the show over at the Rado. So I figured a nice little entry level to the El Dorado Ballroom would be a nice little community cafe. And we're calling it the Rado Cafe. So this will be like a upgraded coffee house. So we'll have a small kitchen, be really big on brunch service, probably have about a 15 menu item tops, specialty coffees, and a very European kind of bar with very just light, low alcohol cocktails, because we don't want that kind of energy in there. We want it to be very nice and community considerate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the first part. Then we have the Hogan Brown Gallery that will go in there, which will be a art gallery, something I've been wanting to do for the past 6 years. I'm a huge fan of art, although you can't see it with my backdrop here, but huge fan of art. And this will focus on exclusively African-American artists, because we don't feel like they really have the platform to get the showcase that they deserve, and especially in a consistent, in a place that's dedicated just to them, that's run like the better art galleries of the world. And this was a no-brainer for me, because given who I'm partnering up with, Project Row House, the largest African-American arts nonprofit in the country, and one of them, it's just a easy thing. And Hogan Brown is a nod to my mother's maiden name and my father's mother's maiden name.
Huh.
Yeah, so I got to force history into it some kind of way. And then we have, next to that, we have the yet to be named community center, because this is 2 nonprofits. And so that community center, if you think about what we're doing there, we have all the mediums of the arts. We have culinary art, then we have the gallery with visual art, and then we have the ballroom upstairs, which can have music, film, theater, all that kind of stuff. Performance art. Thank you for condensing that for me. I've been looking for that word for so long.
Performance.
Yeah, performance art. So we'll have that going on upstairs. And with that community center, what we're going to do is, I, of course, will lead classes for the youth in the community and show them how dishes are born and how they live in restaurants. So I want them to see not only the creative component of it, but also the entrepreneurial side of it. Like, this is why you do this. This is how you cost it out. This is what you factor in to making a successful dish at a restaurant. And this is why we take this approach. Then we'll do the exact same thing with the art gallery. The artists that come in, they have to do a residence of 3 months. So that means for 3 months, every Saturday, they're going to come and host a class of about 20, 25 kids. And they're going to show those kids their perspective of art, how they came to do the way they do it, how they see the world. And then not only that, what it costs to be an artist and how you make money. So if you have Johnny in there, and then they're going to have their big showing the last day of their class over at the gallery, to where they can actually sell their pieces. The instructor can then tell them, well, hey, Johnny, how much do you want to make? Johnny says $25. And the instructor will tell him, well, it took you $25 material to do that. And your time worth anything? No, how are you going to make any money? And so they'll come to a number, and then he'll let Johnny know that, hey, the gallery takes 40% off the top. So factor that into it as well.
Right.
So they can see what it's really like to be why we call them starving artists and what it's like to live that life. And we can do the exact same thing with the performance art as well.
This is brilliant, and also, so this is an extension of what you were doing with the nonprofit. Was really, it started feeding people in need right through COVID. So that was really, you know, what the mission was initially. So this is taking it a step further and bringing in that training component and that, you know, that ability to kind of bring it to the community to apply in other ways. It's not just about offering a free meal, but
yeah, absolutely. And so you said it perfectly. That's exactly what we're trying to do, is fold all that into the feeding people. What we did with 1913, what we've done is, like, we're not trying to just have like one day impact. We want to have long-term impact. So the communities that we're feeding are also the communities that we're hiring from. So as we're branching out now we have 3 kitchens, and we're in the process of acquiring about 20 acres of land. We're going to continue to hire the people from these communities so that we can teach them how to not only feed themselves, but to keep their community whole, and pay them throughout the entire process a premium on a living wage, which for us in Texas, $12 an hour is fantastic, especially given that the majority of these places, the median income is $15,000 a year. So if they do full 40-hour work weeks with us through our partnerships, and hopefully we can find some more funding sources, they're you know, starting out the gate, they'll make $6,000 more. No, what am I talking about? $8,000 more than their neighbors, but they're making that $8,000 extra more than their neighbors by sustaining their neighbors in their own houses.
so that on the land they'd be growing community gardens. You're talking about actually bringing people through the whole food cycle: planting, growing, cooking, selling.
Yeah, and so you're so spot on. You're one of the sharpest people that I've spoken with. But yeah, so the ecosystem, the way that it works is, not only do they grow the food for their community, we create these different access points to where the community can then, you know, come purchase it. We're just selling at cost. We're not here to make money. We're here to sustain the program and not give people handouts. We're trying to give them a handout. So then from those access points, we train people in the grocery business. They're getting paid for it. Then we have the fermentation business, because we're also combating food waste, which I hate. I hate waste. You know, it's not good for my business, period. And that's not good for the planet on the bigger picture. So then we have the waste that comes from the kitchens, the whole ingredient waste that goes into fermentation labs, which we use in my restaurant, which we'll use in late August. And we'll also put them on the shelves for these access points for these target communities to access. And then what comes after that, the scraps, then we compost it and we give it right back to the land where the whole program starts.
This is fantastic. So, okay, so you have all of this planned. Now, this is a lot for, you know, at a time when a lot of restaurants are in crisis. Tell me a little bit about how Lucille's is doing, for one, how you managed through the last year, through 2020. And then I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the future, but how is Lucille's pulling along?
Lucille's is, it sometimes makes me a little uncomfortable to say it, but she is doing extremely well. We were fortunate because when I first started the restaurant, we have a huge patio, which is almost doubles as the inside of my restaurant.
That's great.
And as soon as the world changed, and we knew, for the protection of my staff and the protection of our community at large, we didn't want inside dining at all. We led the curbside stuff from the very beginning, took a big loss because we did not accept cash. All the transactions were done over the phone. And I'm so glad to say we were able to keep 100% of our staff on without furloughing one person.
Well done.
And keeping them, yeah. So the restaurant, because of that patio, which is until last year, was just overflow, that patio is now the destination. So, and then another thing is, I'm a restaurant guy. I don't know anything about fundraising. I still don't. So Lucille's is doing well enough to where she's financing the majority of these initiatives. Well, she was, until we started to get on the radar of different foundations that wanted to partner with us and support us with the initiative.
Okay, well, that's great. So why do all this now then? So you've got Lucille's doing pretty well. So what possessed you to take this step at this point in your life?
Well, I mean, I'm a chef first, and so most chefs will tell you we're gluttons for punishment. Like with the definition of masochist, like, you know, what I just came from. And quite frankly, like, the needs there. In 1913, when I started, it's not like, okay, we ran out of money, guys, so now you're on your own. Like, I've made a commitment to start building relationships with these communities that we've been serving. I can't just turn away.
Right.
And so when you make that commitment and you put it out in the universe, you have to figure out a way to do it. And so we've done that, and now it's just growing. It's growing to more, and it's going to require more. But that work is truly addictive. Like, you can't. I never understood the nonprofit world, but it's beautiful. I mean, because that's the only reason why we're here right now. And that's the only reason why I was able to keep my staff on, is because I took profitability out of the equation. So I essentially became a nonprofit for the purpose of becoming sustainable, just to sustain through this new thing that we're going through. And so, and why not? I mean, the Canadian restaurant, I've been working on that for years, but everything else, the lesson of last year, what it's showing me is that, like, when you're very transparent and clear about your investment in the community, like, the community can't help but to reciprocate. And so these opportunities that are open up to us are just coming because of the good works that we're doing for our people, and other people want to be involved in that. So that's why these doors are opening up. And I don't know how to say no. No, I like to say, yeah, of course. And then I'll figure out how to make it work.
Make sure to check out our next Rising Star, debuting on the third Wednesday of every month. And if you know someone who is a rising star, let us know at lisa.jennings, JENNINGS @informa.com.